All right, so if you get logged in to Unit 3, Lesson 3, this is sort of an introduction to what we call Game Lab. Game Lab is a new tool that we'll be working on pretty much all card marking, now, not this next card marking, I should say, through June at least. We'll be working on animations, we'll be working on some basic game design in Game Lab. Okay, so the first thing that we need to do when we look at Game Lab, when you log in, guys, there's a few things that are going to be different. We have our preview screen is over here on the right. So this is different than Web Lab, right? We have a toolbox in the center, and we have our workspace over here on the right hand side. So preview area on the left, toolbox in the center, workspace all the way to the right. So this is going to be a slightly different in terms of what we're used to. So again, there is a single line of code in our workspace. When we are using Game Lab, in order to actually see what's going on with the code, we have to click the Run button. And hitting the Run button does exactly what the name suggests. It runs the program. Okay, so we have drawn, I know this is not very exciting at all. Trust me, it gets better a lot. It gets better. But right now, all we have here is a rectangle. Now, I want you to notice something. See how it says rectangle 100, 100? I want you to think in terms of like your math classes. I always like to put on my grid so I know where things are placed. So if I show my grid, 100, 100 refers to the X and Y position of the top corner of the rectangle. So your X axis works the same way as it does in math class. The y-axis goes down, but it's still positive numbers. That's a little weird. It's a little backwards from our math classes, but that's okay. So it's challenging us to try and see if we can put the rectangle near the bottom right of the screen. The nice thing about having our grid on is if we take our mouse and hover over, under where it says reset, we see the X and Y numbers changing. So if I just kind of place that where I'd like to put it, it says X 297, Y 299. I'm just going to round those up to 300, 300. So if I change these numbers to 300, 300, that is going to change the position of my rectangle. Now, obviously it didn't work, but again, if I hit reset, it'll refresh the program, and then I'm going to run the program. And you can see where it moved to, okay? So again, the goal of this first one is just kind of again, change the numbers inside the block, try running the program again, try to see how to move the rectangle near the bottom right of the screen. Again, when you're drawing a rectangle, ladies and gentlemen, it is the numbers X and Y, because that's pretty much just a coordinate system, are based off of the top left-hand corner of the rectangle. Once you have done that, make sure you go ahead and hit finish and then continue. All right, so we have a quick little video, introduction to Game Lab. I'm going to run this separately because whenever I try to run it inside the program, it does not work very well.
Wait.
Go ahead.
I'm a little confused on the.
Go ahead. I'm listening.
I'm a little confused on the first part a little bit.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so let's go back. Just give it a minute. Guess my computer's slow this morning. All right, what do you have a problem with? What are we what's the problem? What's the question?
Okay. So I don't remember actually. I actually don't even remember what I was about to ask you.
Okay, so the only thing that we're really looking at in this first grid is how we can place a rectangle. The rectangle is placed based on a coordinate system, kind of like in math when you do a graph, you have your x and y coordinate. So your first number corresponds to your x. Your x, of course, goes across. It goes, horizontally. Your y, which is your second number, is your vertical number. The only thing is in Web Lab, 0 for y is in the top, and then it goes all the way down to 400 on the bottom. This is a 400 by 400 grid. So if I change the numbers inside of where it's telling me to call up the rectangle, let's say if I go to 200, 200, and then I reset it and I run it, it's going to move the rectangle. What this code is saying is draw a rectangle, and then it's telling the program where to draw it. And the where corresponds to an XY coordinate. But in the instructions, it says that they wanted it in the bottom right-hand corner. So I chose 300, 300 because that's going to get us closer to the bottom right-hand corner. So that was my choice that's why I chose 300, 300.
Okay. Okay.
All
Good
right,
idea.
cool. All right, so going on to our video, ladies and gentlemen. And again, this is just an introduction to Game Lab. We will be in Game Lab pretty much for a long time. So if you're dying and you have no idea what I'm talking about yet, give it time. You will get it because this is the program that we'll be using pretty much for the remainder through June.
I'm Amara. I'm a student at Dartmouth College, and I love to code and dance. People always thought I was good with technical stuff with computers and phones, and then I did Girls Who Code. And yeah, seeing other girls interested and realizing that it was more accessible than I think I thought was a good gateway into computer science. Welcome to Game Lab. Game Lab is a tool that lets you draw pictures, design animations, and build your own games with code. To create these animations and games, you'll be learning and using the programming language JavaScript. GameLab is designed with the beginning programmer in mind, but it also includes many powerful features to help you bring your creations to life. Let's get started! In GameLab, you can add lines of code to your program by dragging blocks out from the toolbox and snapping them together. Then click the Run button to see the result. The output of the program will show up on the left in the display area. If you prefer, you can also type the commands yourself. Either way you write your code, you can always flip between block mode and text mode. In fact, you can work in text mode and drag blocks out to insert the text. If you make an error, you can use the blocks as a way to check if it's the right command. If you want to get rid of a line of code, just drag the block off the screen. You can also delete it from the text. To start out, you'll be drawing with simple shapes like rectangles and ellipses. That's a fancy name for an oval. To change where shapes show up on the screen, you can change the numbers given to each command. The first two numbers set the position of the shape. The last two numbers change the size. Let's check out an example where we want to move our rectangle down the screen and then make it wider. In GameLab, the X and Y position starts at the top left corner. If we want to move the rectangle down the screen, we actually need to increase the Y value. To make the rectangle wider, we'll also need to increase its width. Learning how to use new commands doesn't have to be trial and error. If you hover over any of the blocks, you can read more about how to use it and see detailed examples of each command. I don't know what I want to do after college, but I know that computer science will give me a lot of opportunities to work in many different industries, which is why I like it so much.
All right. So we can always come back to this video. Again, it was bubble number 2, but when you're done with it, go ahead and hit finish or complete at the bottom. I always forget which one it says. Okay, so as always, I am going to do some of this with you, and then you'll have time to work on it on your own. All right, so it says place squares in corners. A big part of using GameLab is understanding positioning. Remember, you can always turn the grid on or hover with the mouse to help find the X and Y position. I personally always work with my grid on. That is a personal preference. You are not required, but that is my personal preference. It's just easier for me. All right, so let's see. It says, do this. Place 2 rectangles exactly in the corners of the screen, just like in the picture. So we have our model over here, and we need to recreate that. So if I hit run right now, I have one rectangle, and it's not in the right position. So again, those positions, your X and Y, are based off of the top top left-hand corner of that rectangle. So I first want to do the very, very top one, and that is going to be at my origin 0, 0. So I'm going to change my X position to 0 and my Y position also to 0. I'm going to hit reset. I am going to hit run. And as you can see, now my first rectangle has been placed in the upper left-hand corner, just like it is in the picture. But now I need to place a second rectangle. In order to do that, I am going to use my block. I'm going to pick this up and drag it into my program. And I'm going to see what happens. Reset, run. Well, that's not where I want it. Remember, I want it in the lower right-hand corner. I'm not exactly sure what those numbers are going to be. I know that my square is exactly one grid number. So I'm going to kind of put my cursor where I think that top left-hand corner should be. And it's about 350, 350. So I'm going to go ahead and change my rectangle 2 to 350, 350, reset, and run. Oh, okay. Is this what's going on? Oh, ha ha! I see. Remember, I was telling you guys I make mistakes all the time. Lord have mercy. I put this at 3,500 and something. It is off the grid. Remember, the grid's only 400 by 400. So any number over 400, you're not going to see it. Holy Mary, Mother of God. All right, here we go. There it is. Holy goodness. All right, so at 350, 350, not 3,000, there it is. I have it at the top and bottom of the screen, just like in the sample picture. Once that is done, we are going to go ahead and hit finish and continue and keep it working. And I think we have another lovely video here with our friend Amara.
So far, you've only been drawing gray-colored shapes. Let's throw some color into these shapes to make them more interesting. Every shape has 2 elements that can be colored, a stroke and a fill. The stroke is the border of the shape. The fill is the color inside the shape. At any point, you can change the color used to draw the stroke or fill of the shape. For example, here we'll change the fill to be the color green before drawing a rectangle. If you draw more rectangles after setting the fill color, they'll also be green. Until you change the fill color, GameLab will continue to draw shapes in the color that you set. The same applies for the stroke of your shapes. If you don't want your shapes to have a stroke or a fill, you can use the no stroke or no fill commands to make it so. The order of commands matters a lot in GameLab. You need to change the color of your stroke or fill before you draw the shape. If you were drawing or painting in real life, this would be like dipping your paintbrush into your palette before drawing on the canvas. There's lots of other commands you can use to create interesting and complex drawings. As you get more familiar with all the drawing tools available in GameLab, you'll get better at bringing your ideas to life. Happy drawing!
All right. So as always, we're going to go ahead and hit continue.
Excuse me, Miss Cano-Michael,
Yes.
can you play the video? Because I couldn't hear the sound, and it was like very low. And I was trying to turn up my volume, but it's all the way up, and I just still couldn't hear it.
Okay, we'll try it again.
Thank you.
So far, you've only been drawing gray-colored shapes. Let's throw some color into these shapes to make them more interesting. Every shape has two elements that can be colored, a stroke and a fill. The stroke is the border of the shape. The fill is the color inside the shape. At any point, you can change the color used to draw the stroke or fill of the shape. For example, here we'll change the fill to be the color green before drawing a rectangle. If you draw more rectangles after setting the fill color, they'll also be green. Until you change the fill color, GameLab will continue to draw shapes in the color that you set. The same applies for the stroke of your shapes. If you don't want your shapes to have a stroke or a fill, you can use the no stroke or no fill commands to make it so. The order of commands matters a lot in GameLab. You need to change the color of your stroke or fill before you draw the shape. If you were drawing or painting in real life, this would be like dipping your paintbrush into your palette before drawing on the canvas. There's lots of other commands you can use to create interesting and complex drawings. As you get more familiar with all the drawing tools available in GameLab, you'll get better at bringing your ideas to life. Happy drawing!
All right, so hopefully that was better. All right, so what we're going to do now is we are going to look at working with color. Again, I can't stress this enough, ladies and gentlemen. It is really, the order of the code is important. The program literally is going to read in order, 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way down your code. Okay, so it says, look at the code that sets the color. It's right here, at line 1, it says blue. Change the color from blue to yellow. Okay, so I can either do a drag down and grab yellow, or if you prefer, you can literally just highlight it and then just type the word yellow. Like that would also work. You can just delete right in there and type whatever color you prefer. And then we're going to go ahead and hit run. All right, so now I have 2 of my 3 rectangles, but it says add a new square by dragging a rectangle box into the code area below the command. And it says show me where, and it'll show you that one right there, right? The new square can go in any location on the screen you like. Awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and grab that in. I kind of want it sort of like the picture. So I'm going to take my mouse and I'm going to hover over my grid. And that looks like about 100, 250. So my X, I want to put at 100. And my Y, I want to put at 250. And I'm going to hit reset. And I am going to go ahead and hit run. And now I have 3 squares just like in the box or in the preview area. All right, issues or questions? You don't have to do this, but I do want to show you why order matters. Let's pretend I put that first. Who can tell me what is going to happen with my line 1 of code? Is it still going to be yellow? What do we think? Look at my program now and tell me, do you think all 3 of my rectangles will still be yellow? Just make a prediction. It doesn't matter.
No,
Yes.
Some
No.
say yes, some say no. Here's what happens. That one at 100, 250 is gray. And the reason why is because order matters. I'm saying make a rectangle, and then I'm saying, hey, from now on, make my fill yellow. If I want everything to be yellow, everything has to come after that fill command. Okay? Order matters in GameLab. I know it didn't matter too much with HTML, but it mattered with the CSS when we did the styles. But order definitely matters in JavaScript, so it matters in GameLab. Okay, in GameLab, it matters what order your code is in. We just talked about this. New shapes are drawn on top of the old ones that came before, and they will cover up the shapes that are drawn first. You can see the difference when you use more than one color in your code. Do this. look at the code that draws the two rectangles. The first is drawn red and the second is drawn blue. Change the red rectangle's color to green. Change the order of the code so the green appears on top. So basically, we want to recreate this picture over here. So I want to see what it looks like originally before I run any changes. All right, so first things first, I need to change my red rectangle into green. That being said, that's an easy one. I'm just going to do a drag down to green, or if you prefer, you can just highlight the word red and type in the word green. Whatever's easier for you is what I recommend doing. Reset, run. Okay, cool. So now I have a green square and a blue square. The problem is my green should be on top. The reason why my green is not on top is because think of your drawing like layers. Like you made a layer of green paint and then you made a layer of blue paint. What you need to do is you need to reorder this. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to grab line 1 and drag it to the bottom, and what originally was line 2 and drag that to the bottom. In other words, or you could take the bottom 2 and drag them up, whatever works easier for you. I need my blue square to happen first. That will make it the first okay. So let me reset the, oh, whoa, way too big. Okay, hopefully that helps. Let me go back to beginning, start over. Okay, so the first thing we needed to do is to change our rectangle to green. The red rectangle, so if we run this, we have a red and a blue rectangle. The first thing we want to do is change the red to green. So that way it matches the preview picture. Now I have green and I have blue. Now I have to change the order of my code so that way my green is on top. In order to do that, blue has to be on the bottom. For blue to be on the bottom, I have to code for the blue rectangle first. So all you need to do is reorder your code in the workspace. So all I'm going to do is you can grab the green rectangle and drag it down, or you can grab the blue rectangle and drag it up. It doesn't really matter as long as blue is first. So that is exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to make that the blue rectangle before the green rectangle. That means it'll be the first layer of my picture. And now when I go ahead and hit research run, my green is on top, exactly like in my preview picture. Issues or questions? All right, hearing none, we move on. All right, I need to make this a little bit smaller so I can actually read the directions. I will make it larger when I start to work on my code though. Okay, so now we have an ellipse. An ellipse is just a fancy word for a circle or oval. It says you can use the ellipse to make a circle. Do this. You look at the code, the ellipse that makes the ellipse, add a new ellipse of a different color. Okay, I can do that. So again, let me make this a little bit bigger so the code is easier to see. So if I run this now, I have a teal ellipse. I want to add a new ellipse of a different color. So I'm going to pull in a new fill color, and maybe I'll make it red. Why not? And then I'll pull in a new ellipse. Now this one is set up at 200, 200. About ellipses. The XY position is at the center of the circle. So the center of my circle, my new one, is going to be at 200, 200. Okay? So I pulled in a new ellipse. I pulled in a new fill color. Reset run, and there it is. Okay? Pretty easy peasy. Again, the most important thing about these drawings is the order of the code, because you have to make sure that your layers are done correctly. All right, once that is done, go ahead and hit, oh, before I move on, are there any issues or questions? Okay, go ahead and continue. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so this is the part that you are going to do on your own. Bubble 8, you have A, B, and C. You are just going to have to reorder the code to make the pictures that they're asking you to make. And then in bubble number 9, you have a this, which is kind of a random weird thing, and you need to turn it into this preview picture. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you have about 20, no, not even quite 20 minutes. You have some time left. Please use this time to work. In the meantime, I'm going to stop my screen share and I'm going to build this into our assignment. As always, during work time, if you have issues or questions, please